Ahoy! I already made a long version of the patch notes for the New World Open Beta, and this is the summarized version where we only go over the most important stuff. There were various exploit fixes, bug fixes, and so on in the patch notes. We're not going to go over that, but focus on the most important big stuff. The first one of those is the PvP scaling, which has been reduced so that if you're a higher level, you have more of an advantage now. I think that's not a good design choice. I thought the old system was better for PvP specifically, but that's the way they are going right now. Next are changes to armor. Essentially what this comes down to is that the equip load that you can have at medium weight is decreased from 15 to 13, and the heavy load is decreased from 30 to 23. And in that context, some other changes have been made to the weight of certain items, certain aspects of certain items, especially those that have balanced stats. They have been buffed a little bit, whereas the ones that have imbalanced stats with a more physical or more elemental defense mostly stay the same. And the round shield and kite shields also have lower weight so that you can use those shields in lighter builds without getting pushed into a heavier weight category. Along with that, the 20% damage increase for light equip load and the 10% damage increase for medium equip load now also affects healing. So now you can get 20% extra healing in light equip, but don't get too excited because in return healing is reduced by 20%. So in other words, healers heal the same if they are in light armor now and heal less in medium armor and even less in high armor. So you effectively lose up to 20%. In terms of perks, various fortified perks have been reduced in their potency from 30% to 10%, so they've really taken down fortify quite a notch here. The chain attacks on certain weapons are also massively nerfed, with going down from 5 to 3 bounces when you're hitting a target, and additionally the elemental perks only proccing off basic attacks now, and no longer of any abilities. So that takes away things like the rapier AoE abuse that you could previously do. In terms of attributes, there are a lot of changes to Constitution. The 250 attribute threshold perk for Constitution has its damage mitigation bonus reduced from 80 to 60%, and the same bonus also has a 60-second cooldown now. So if you get healed up, then you'll still have quite a while until the effect comes back up. Also, the 150 Constitution bonus now only reduces the damage from critical hits and not from all hits. When it comes to consumables, there is a very long list of specific consumables and trophies that have been nerfed in regards to extra mob type damage dealt or less mob damage taken. I'm not going to go through all of them, just telling you that they exist. If you want to see all of them, just check out the full patch note list. Additionally, the Empower and Fortify buffs that you can get from potions are now limited to the same maximum cap as every other Empower or Fortify effect, which is 50%. Healing potions get a pretty significant change. Now, previously, they provided 160 to 1,800 healing, depending on the level that you had, and an additional 15% healing. Now they provide 200 to 2,400 flat healing and only 7% healing. This means that they are much better for characters or players with lower Constitution, with lower base health, lower maximum health, whereas they are better for those who have relatively little in Constitution, more in damage, because the flat heal just has more value for them. The same thing is applied for regeneration potions on a lesser scale. Here we're going from 30 to 180 to 40 to 240, with the max HP going from 1.5% to 0.7%. So really that is a push against Constitution in multiple ways here, along with the fixes. The endurance potions have entirely been removed from the game. That brings us to the weapons. Here we have the Warhammer first of all, where the hardened steel damage reduction is reduced from 20 to 15%. Again, damage reduction effects are getting hit a lot. The sword actually gets a variety of different changes. So Freeing Justice will now only remove a single debuff and not all debuffs. This is something we'll also see with Lifestaff. Fortitude has been replaced with Invigorating Bulwark. Fortitude was the one that gives you extra percentage HP when you're using Assault and Shield. This new effect will grant you 15 stamina on hit when using the Shield Bash or Shield Rush abilities, which I think is very, very interesting for PvP especially, but also for PvE. Leaping Strike has its startup frames reduced from 16 to 14, making it a little bit quicker, and the distance has been increased from 4 to 6 meters, so this should be a lot better overall. Counterattack has been modified to now stack in multiple instances with 3% empower per stack after blocking an attack, and can stack up to 5 times, up to 15%. Previously, it was a single stack after blocking one attack for 20 seconds with a 10% increase. So in many ways, it was actually stronger before, I think. But now the maximum that you can reach is stronger as well. So blocking gets a lot more reward in that regard. Life Staff had quite a few changes that I'm not going to go into all too much detail into because, yeah, if you know Life Staff, then you know what to do with them. I don't really use Life Staff much. But what I can tell you is that Splash of Light will only heal group members as intended and not everyone around you, and that is a massive change. And that there's a Fortify that's taken out a little bit, and there is a little bit of a healing increase, in fact, in Sacred Protection now. So, yeah, and then the same thing with Mending Touch, where you now only remove one debuff instead of all of them. Hatchet has its Berserk duration reduced to 12 seconds and the cooldown has been increased to 18 seconds. A pretty significant change because this was 15 and 15 before. And along with that, the Berserking Refresh now heals 10% every 4 seconds while Berserk is active to a maximum of 30% health, which used to be every 5 seconds to a maximum of 35% health. So less healing in that regard, but not drastically less, just a little bit, 5%, and it heals a little bit quicker as well in return, but then Berserk is also shorter. The Stay Back passive now also applies its 25% slow for 4 seconds, that's the last perk of social distancing, so that should work properly, which didn't work before apparently. The Great Axe has the Gravity Well Unyielding Fortify upgrade also reduced from 15 to 10%, again, the hitting Fortify everywhere. Enduring Strike will now reduce the damage taken by 20% while you're in grit, so that part of that ability actually didn't work, but at the same time the reduction gets nerfed in the next step. These were two separate changes from 20 to 15%. Also, the second hit of Reap no longer has stagger on it, and the Heavy Pull passive no longer causes heavy attacks to hit twice, the secondary specifically. The bow has the effectiveness of Unbreakable Focus Fortify reduced from 20 to 10%. That's the one where you're aiming and you can get hit by enemies during the aim, I think. So you have Fortify while you're aiming. And Unbreakable Focus can no longer stay on forever when outside of the aiming state, which is probably what explains why this had to be nerfed in multiple ways, even if they didn't target the other part. And Deep Strike will only increase the damage on penetrating shot, not on all attacks. It's also very significant. And the animation cancelling technique, where you could shoot a light projectile and a heavy projectile after each other, has been removed. I think that was a great thing to have, a great mechanic to learn for more experienced players, but I guess they thought it was too strong. The Ice Gauntlet basically just gets fixes where effects that previously didn't apply actually apply now, as far as I understand it. So they now should have extra damage or should apply debuffs and should also decrease your cooldowns as intended. When it comes to the gems, the Amber Gem gets nerfed. This is the one that ties in with the Life Staff. So here the damage scaling is reduced by 20%. So that is not as rewarding to run the Amber Gem on another weapon that is unrelated to focus, along with the Life Staff, and still have very high damage from that, which was especially an issue in PvP as well. The damage conversion gems are also apparently fixed, where they used to give double bonus effects. That was what I talked about in my gem video, so that should be working as intended now as well. The attribute threshold bonus effects here for 50, 100, and 150 strength were affecting the gem damage as well, the elemental part of the damage as well, and this is now fixed and they will now only affect the physical part of the damage. When it comes to the questing and progression, or PvE in general, which was what we're going to look at next, first of all have the tier 4 and 5 Aethos staff being added to the main story quest, and that means we have a longer main story quest now as well, and those will be used for the high-level corruption breaches. There are various XP nerfs to town projects for raw materials, refined materials, armaments, and provisions, so town board in general seems to be worth a lot less now. The XP needed at lower levels, however, has been reduced by a small amount, and the XP required from level 20 to 30 has been reduced by a medium amount, because that was a bit of a stagnating part of the game, and I think that's a very good decision. The faction points tokens, I'm not sure which one is meant here, that you can gain in certain regions have also been reduced a little bit, because in those regions the PvP missions are very quick and easy to do. Now, we have some changes to mobs as well. I'm just going to show them quickly here. So basically the scaling for high level mobs has been increased, level 50 and above, and that is for the damage scaling, and then the health scaling for mobs on level 30 and above had also been increased, but to a lesser extent. Along with that, open world non-elites have been buffed, non-boss elites have been buffed, and open world and arena bosses have all been buffed. So pretty much everything open world has been buffed, but the damage done by expedition AI has also been increased by 13%. So overall we're seeing a ton of buffs to many higher level things, basically, so higher level enemies, elite enemies, and all that stuff. And many of them are affected by multiple changes, including the general AI buff as well. So hopefully we should see a bit more of a challenge in that regard. We also get some better rewards along with that. So the drop rate of named items from expedition bosses is increased. And there was apparently an issue that would cause them to roll outside of their appropriate gear score range previously. I don't know if that was above or below, so that's fixed as well. And generally named weapons are supposed to be better now, have better perks on them, so that they overall end up more valuable. There are also no longer any differences between the different factions' armor pieces and weapons. They all have the same effect, the PvP rewards, and the price has been adjusted corresponding with that. So they're going to be more expensive, as well as no longer having any sockets for gems on them. Or rather, they have sockets for gems on them, but they don't have any gems in them anymore, and you have to socket them yourself. And the gear score of the tier 4 faction equipment has been decreased slightly from 495 to 490, and for tier 5 it's been reduced from 550 to 535. In war we get a variety of fixes or changes as well. So now siege weapon damage is mitigated by armor, which was previously not the case. And in return some other changes had to be made. So the siege weapon damage is increased by 20%. The cannon specifically gets its damage increased by 30%. And the repeater will now always do damage even at a very long range, only 10% of the damage, as well as now having its fall of start at 80 meters instead of 60 meters. So these are basically just some buffs to offset the very significant nerf of them being affected by armor. When it comes to deployables, you can only have a shared amount of 15 inferno traps and powder kegs per team, so you can't spam traps everywhere, and defenders can no longer abuse the respawn to spawn in the middle of the battleground and rush enemies down right at the start. That is the collection of, in my opinion, the most important changes. I hope I didn't forget any or skip over any. I will link this document in my Discord as well if you want to have a look for yourself. And also, if you want to see more New World related stuff, please consider subscribing and clicking the bell, because there's going to be a lot more New World stuff coming in the upcoming days. And of course, if you want to see me stream that, then feel free to head over to twitch.tv/DukeSloth, where I'll be streaming the beta. So if you have any questions regarding any changes or anything else, then I'll be more than happy to answer that there. With that, thank you guys very much for watching, and I hope to see you for the next one later. I'll be talking about the way that you want to level your attributes in the beta. And yeah, that's it. DukeSloth, out.